Good afternoon and welcome to the second series of Let's Talk Poultry. My name is Rebecca Tierney, Poultry Advisor with Teagasc. I'm delighted to be hosting these webinars for you, our poultry producers and industry stakeholders. Following the success of our first series, Teagasc is thrilled to bring you 3 more webinars on topics selected by you. First up, we have a good news story from Professor Pat Wall of UCD on the health benefits of our poultry products. Next Wednesday, December 2nd, at the earlier time of 12 p.m, I will be joined by Kieran McCabe, Poultry Advisor with IFAC, to look at the tax structures which can save you money. And finally, on December 16th, I will be joined by poultry nutritionist with DEVENISH, Michelle Burke, to discuss poultry nutrition and protein sustainability. I want to thank you for joining me today. We will have a question and answer session at the end of Pat's presentation. So I want to invite you to send in any questions you have to the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. These webinars will be recorded and will be available on the Teagasc website along with Pat's presentation. To begin today, I have invited Eithne White, Superintending Veterinary Inspector of the National Disease Control Centre with the Department of Food, the Agriculture, Food and Marine. Eithne is going to give us an update on the AI situation and to reiterate the importance of strict biosecurity measures. So I'd ask you to turn on your camera, Eithne, and we'll get your presentation followed by some questions. So if you have some questions for Eithne, please send them in.
Well, thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for the opportunity to come on and say a few words about AI. Avian influenza has been circulating in Europe to a greater extent this autumn. There's a particular subtype or strain of AI called highly pathogenic H5N8. We had it here in 2016-17 in wild birds, and unfortunately it's circulating again in Europe, UK and now Ireland. In the month of November, we had 3 confirmed cases of H5N8 in wild birds in Ireland, firstly in a peregrine falcon in Limerick, a curlew in County Mayo, and a mute swan in Monaghan. So we know that wild birds are circulating this in the country, and we know that wild birds can pass this virus on to not just our resident wild bird species, but also, more importantly probably from an industry point of view, poultry and captive birds. So we're going to have to implement additional biosecurity measures on poultry holdings in order to try and keep this virus at bay. So I suppose let's start with, when you're thinking about biosecurity, let's start thinking about what actions can I take to keep wild birds away from my poultry on my holding. And I suppose the first thing is don't let them roam all around the farm. Keep them maybe confined to a fenced area, and keep that fenced area away from water points such as lakes or ponds or outdoor water drinkers. You can use bird netting if you have a few birds and just restrict them to a small area of outdoor access. And make sure and locate all of your feeding points and watering points indoors. Again, we don't want to leave anything outside that's going to attract wild birds near our poultry. You can also try and use things like scarecrows or other type of bird deterrents to try and keep them away. And then it's not just direct contact between wild birds and poultry that could spread AI. Their droppings, their fecal contamination of feed, of bedding, can also, or even on boots, you know, can also spread the virus into poultry units. So if you think about, first of all, think about where you're storing your feed. Is it bird proof? Is it rodent proof as well? Make sure and have a good rodent pest plan in place and implement it on the holding. The same goes for bedding. Can wild birds access that if you're using straw? And then when it comes to your housing itself, birds like to land on top of roofs, and rainwater could easily get contaminated with bird droppings if you have a leaky roof. And is your house bird proof to begin with? Is there a gap where the birds can fly in? Do you keep the doors closed? Try and take all these measures just to keep wild birds at bay. That's the important thing here. And then other biosecurity measures we should probably be thinking about doing is your clothing and footwear, because people can walk a virus into a house, and direct contact then with animals, you can actually spread it to them. So try and keep dedicated footwear and clothing if you're for your own poultry house. Don't wear the same pair of boots that you're using for the poultry down to the local co-op. Keep it dedicated, and keep a disinfectant point outside of the poultry house, and keep that disinfectant fresh and clean. If there's any dirt in it, it's not going to work. You may start again. Use an approved disinfectant and use it according to the manufacturer's rate. Use it then, keep your boots disinfected every time you come in. Wash your hands before and after feeding poultry. Use hand sanitizer. And again, with clothes, keep dedicated clothes or change your clothes regularly. Restrict access to other people as well. You know, if try and restrict this direct contact. People who are coming into direct contact with your poultry should be limited to those essential to coming into contact with the poultry. Don't allow visitors in at this particular time. And then I suppose the other thing is then when it comes to people, handling wild birds is not a good idea if you've got poultry at home. If you come across a dead or a sick wild bird, we'd encourage you to ring the Department of Agriculture, ring your local regional veterinary office and report it. We are collecting a lot of died wild birds for surveillance for AI, and so we'd appreciate it if you ring it in to us and we'll deal with it. If you have accidentally handled wild birds, make sure again, wash your hands and use hand sanitizer, change your clothes before you go anywhere near poultry. It's not advisable for poultry owners to bring back sick wild birds to rehabilitate them. Again, just ring your local vet or ring the local regional veterinary office. And I think, that's pretty much a lot of the biosecurity measures. Other things then are equipment. Make sure if you're using equipment that again is clean and disinfected. We've got to be thinking yourself about what birds could potentially contaminate and make sure that that's clean, it's disinfected, and that you're keeping wild birds as much as you can, keeping them away and keeping them at bay from your own poultry. So I think that pretty much covers a lot of the areas I think I wanted to cover. Again, it's all about restricting access to essential personnel, essential vehicles, using disinfectant, making sure your housing, your bedding, your feed is all secure and fenced, and as I say, wild bird deterrence if you can. That's it, Rebecca, I think so far.
Fantastic. Thanks a million, Eithne, for that. Yeah, it really is very important for poultry farmers to just carry out the day-to-day biosecurity measures that should be in place anyway, but just being extra strict, I suppose. So I suppose just a couple of questions that's coming in there, Eithne. When would the department feel it would be necessary to house birds, or how many cases does there need to be, or what stage does AI need to be at for the department to call for houses to be closed?
Well, housing is one option that's it's under constant review, and we're working closely with industry and indeed our colleagues in the north, and we will keep that situation under review, and we'll monitor how this disease continues to evolve and the prevalence of it in the country. But it's important to remember that housing is just one option. It's only one biosecurity tool in an entire toolkit of biosecurity measures. And the important thing here is, like, whether you give it a legal basis or not, the important thing is that we get these measures done, and measures being in the plural sense, not just one particular tool. So it's under constant review, Rebecca. Okay,
perfect. Yeah, so I suppose it's down to the farmers themselves maybe to try and restrict it getting there, and as the situation develops, if need be, as you said, it's only one tool in a full toolkit. Just another question then, Eithne, have free-range layers any natural resistance to HPAI compared to indoor commercial poultry layers and breeders?
Well, when it comes to HPAI, it stands for highly pathogenic AI, and unfortunately the disease does tend to have a high impact on chickens and particularly turkeys. For some reason, different species of birds are affected in different ways by HPAI. For example, ducks and geese might not show many of the clinical signs, and maybe I should mention just some of the clinical signs here that people should be looking for. So you can have a sudden cessation or drop in egg production in your layers. You can have your typical respiratory signs, respiratory distress, even coughing, and you can have depression, death. You can have inappetence and birds just generally in poor form. And you can also occasionally get nervous signs like wing drop, paralysis with it. But it's the most common would be obvious respiratory signs. Now, say ducks and geese, less likely to show clinical signs than chickens, hens, or particularly turkeys, which they can have a very high mortality rate in them. But if you see any of those particular signs, it is a notifiable disease. So we would encourage you to contact your local vet or your own vet, or the Department of Agriculture, your local regional veterinary office, without delay.
Okay, perfect. So just to reiterate, the importance of maybe walking your birds twice daily as expected or more so, but also your flock records to keep them up to date, so you know if there's a drop in egg production or a decrease in feed intake or things like that. And I suppose just the number of cases at the moment, there's been 3 confirmed in wild birds. There hasn't been anything more since. So.
We've three confirmed cases, Limerick, Mayo, and Monaghan to date in wild birds.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. But like given the geographic diversity of that, it could obviously potentially, like the last time, it could crop up anywhere, and you just have to be aware of that no matter where you're farming in the country, that you're not immune to this risk that's out there.
Yeah, perfect. Eithne, we have plenty of questions coming in there for you. So what we might do is get yourself back at a later date to maybe give us a further update and to answer some of those questions. So I want to thank you for taking the time today. I know you're very busy as you have your own webinar there this evening. So thanks a million, and I look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks very much, Rebecca.
Next up, I have Dr. Pat Wall, or Professor Pat Wall from UCD. Pat is a medical doctor and a vet, currently Professor of Public Health in UCD, where his research includes tackling lifestyle-related diseases. He is the chair of the National Stakeholders Group in Campylobacter Control, member of the board of Agri-Aware, which has a remit to connect urban consumers with modern agricultural practices. And he was the first CEO of the Irish Food Safety Authority and the second chairperson of the European Food Safety Authority. So Pat, I'd invite you to share your screen and we'll kick off with your presentation.
Okay, well, firstly, good afternoon, everybody. We're living in strange times, and it's a strange way to be carrying on, that we can't have a bit of crack with each other. But what Eithne was talking about, biosecurity there, is never more important in Ireland, and possibly the Health Service Executive could learn from the poultry farmers of Ireland about biosecurity and using PPE, the work that you have done to keep salmon out of the flocks. We haven't been able to keep COVID out of the care homes or out of the hospitals. So that's for another day. Maybe, Rebecca, you might get some of your poultry farmers on and we'll put them on one of the health webinars to explain biosecurity to the health professionals. Anyway, what I want to tell you about today is about poultry and eggs, that they're an underpromoted superfood. And like the future is looking good. I don't think it's ever been better for your sector if you got stuck in, I think the poultry industry is a good industry to be in. So we have enough negativity and doom and gloom, but I think this is a positive story we have to tell, And like, we're underselling an exceptional product. And so I'm going to highlight a few reasons why this is the case. Now, the future is looking good, but there are a few things that we have to be cautious about. We don't want any adverse publicity associated with a food safety scare, with animal welfare issues, related to nutrition and health and the environmental impact of modern poultry production practices. And so, but today I'm only going to focus on the nutrition and health. The other 3 are for another day, Rebecca. The ingredients for success for the sector is we've got to be confident. And so like we've enough negativity out there. So if you're not confident about your own sector, it's definitely not going to lift off. We got to be competitive. We're in a global competition. People don't have to eat poultry and eggs. So we need to highlight the points of differentiation, and we need to be quite creative in the way we produce poultry, but also the way we position our products in the marketplace, because we have a special product, but if you don't position it correctly, you won't capitalize on that. Cooperation and collaboration between the different stakeholders, whether it's Borbia, the Department of Agriculture, the growers or the producers. Like if we're starting to fight among ourselves, we're definitely not going to succeed. And compliance, this is important. We need to comply with the rules and regulations. The rules and regulations are there for a reason. And consumer confidence is a very important thing. So whenever there's food scares or instances where the rules aren't being obeyed, it undermines, it damages everybody. And somebody who actually isn't fully compliant needs to nearly be culled from the herd because they damage a lot of us, you know. So I've asked you, we've got over 100 people listening in now, and we said, what's your business? What business are you in? Like, some people are in poultry genetics, you know, that's their thing. They breed chickens and they're breeders. Some people are in poultry nutrition, and you're going to have a talk from poultry nutritionists in 2 weeks' time. Some people, poultry health is their focus, Eithne as a vet. Some people, poultry welfare is their thing. And food safety used to be my gig. I used to be telling people that, you know, if you're in the food business, you're in the food safety business. So you're as much in the food safety business as someone running a hotel or a restaurant. Because if you make a mistake, people can get sick. That's what I used to say, but I've moved on from that now. And basically the end game is we're providing nutrition for people. And so human nutrition is the game we're in. And basically you are what you eat is as true now as it's ever been. And so really human health is the business you're in. And so this is the theme of the talk that I'm going to give you, this short talk. Human health, that's the name of the game, right? So you're always, every day we're hearing about the health professionals, the frontline workers, the health professionals. If you got €1 for every time you heard the word the health professionals, you wouldn't need to be rearing chickens. But these aren't the health professionals. These aren't the health professionals. The doctors and the nurses, they're the sickness professionals. They're the sickness professionals. Health professionals are people who are in the nutrition business, like yourselves, people who are in exercise business, encouraging people that are in exercise, and people that are in stress reduction, stress management business. So basically, that's how you keep the population healthy. This is actually the Ministry of Health should be described as the Ministry of Sickness, the Department of Sickness, because it focuses on health care. So the doctors and the nurses, they're the sickness professionals. Never before has the focus come on health. The COVID pandemic has highlighted health as a huge issue, because this is a disease that really impacts on ill people, whether you're ill because you're old and frail or you've got some concurrent morbidity. So it's never been more important to look after your health than it is now. Most people who are healthy, 80% of people who get this COVID, the symptoms are mild or no symptoms at all. The commonest symptom in young people is no symptom. People have things like loss of taste. You'd hardly call it a symptom. So if you're healthy, this COVID doesn't bother you at all. But if you've got concurrent morbidity or you're old and frail, and so there's a huge issue about the old and the frail in Irish society. And this has exposed how we mind the old people, and we don't mind them well. And we've got nothing to be proud of. This has exposed huge weaknesses in our systems. And like an awful lot of old people, and maybe you have relatives, you know what I'm talking about, they're on masses of numbers of tablets, and like an adult dose of medicine is a dose for an adult person, but a frail elderly person isn't the equivalent of an adult. They've got old kidneys, old liver, so a full dose, you can overdose them very easily. So a lot of old people, they're being damaged by the medications that they're being given by the sickness professionals. And I'm a doctor, so I'm telling it against the doctors here. Now, health and nutrition, some companies have really jumped in onto this. And I just picked out Danone as a company that actually really pushes it, you know. And so they actually have these little drinks that are full of probiotics that are actually supposed to do everything for you, you know. But the way they position them in the marketplace is unbelievable. So, but like, you know, we don't position our products the same way. Like, you know, if you actually think about somebody with high cholesterol, if you actually, you can control cholesterol with your diet rather than with drugs. And so if you had a person head to head, somebody on statins and somebody on skinless chicken fillets, they'd actually, the person on the fillets, they'd enjoy eating the fillets a lot more than they'd eating the statins, and they'd get their cholesterol level down, you know. So like, you have a very special product. We never marketed it as a cholesterol lowering agent. Like, the quality of the protein in eggs is fantastic, and like, it's very affordable, an affordable source of protein. And so we don't position it like that. So the point I'm making is, if Danone were marketing eggs as a health enhancing product, they'd make a better job of it than we do, and they'd actually have more ammunition to make the claims than they have with their immune modulating yogurts, because there's so many different good things in it. So like, if you're talking about health, we and the ingredients for good health, we have them. And so it's the most valuable thing. What is your most valuable resource? It's your health. I just want to tell you a little bit about this. This is in China. in China, we have a project in UCD, and I've been in China many times as a result of this project. But in China, the elderly people aren't disregarded; like they're highly valued in the society, and so they. This is just old people doing Tai Chi exercise, you know, and they have lots of these playgrounds for the elderly. But the one thing that they have there, which is amazing, is that they don't have any. They're not queuing up for hip replacements and knee replacements, and you know the way backache is a big thing with us in Ireland. Everyone's in pain in their back, and the amount of people that have discs in Ireland and that sort of thing. Disc problems, huge hip problems. There's a waiting list for hip replacements and knee replacements, you name it. So I was actually chatting to two Chinese researchers in Hangzhou about this, and they were saying that they've done a lot of work on this. And they said, why did I think it was the case? And I said, well, like the Chinese are lighter, so maybe they're just lighter. They're not much wear and tear on their joints because they're lighter, and maybe it's something genetic. And they said, no, not so, Pat, because Chinese people who emigrate to America, they actually run into exactly the same trouble as the Americans. They're in the queues for hip replacements, knee replacements, and disc troubles in their back. And so basically what the Chinese say is that there's actually what happens is that your cartilage, which is in your joints, and your cartilage between your discs and your back, the cartilage has actually very low blood supply. So therefore, it's very hard for the cartilage to regenerate. So as your cartilage gets old and wear and tears, it's not getting sufficient blood supply to actually regenerate, you know. And so some people actually take chondroitin and glucosamine. They're building blocks of cartilage. And you often see people taking chondroitin and glucosamine tablets to help them. So these Chinese said they started looking at the Chinese diet to say, why is it that Chinese cartilage doesn't disintegrate? The density of an older person's cartilage in a Chinese person is better than one of us, you know. And why is their cartilage not degenerating? And so they reckon it was something in the diet. And there's a couple of things that they were looking at in the diet in particular. One was bone soup. And like that was something that, you know, in the old days, your granny would give you chicken soup if you weren't well to encourage you to get better. Bone soup was one. The next one was bovine trachea. These are the tracheal rings of the cartilage. They actually eat them, stew them up and eat them. And the other one was chicken's feet, you see. And they analyzed the chicken feet. I'll just pick out that one as the three, but they analyzed the chicken feet. And in chicken feet are all the building blocks of cartilage. So like go to the chemist, you can get chondroitin and glucosamine. They're just 2 blocks. But this one, the chicken feet has chondroitin, glucosamine, glycine, proline, all of the building blocks of cartilage. So therefore, by taking chicken feet every day or several times a week, the Chinese are super saturating themselves with the building blocks of cartilage. So their cartilage is regenerating and it's not actually degrading to the same extent. So Eugene Lannon from Western Brand was saying to me, he says, what about the chicken feet, Pat? You're all the time out in China. Can you get the chicken feet out there and get us going? And so when I came back after asking them, after this chat with the chicken feet, I said they eat them like we eat chicken wings, you know. Eugene was saying, well, is there any joy getting any markets for chicken feet for me? And I said, no, but I think you're actually, this chicken feet, you shouldn't be selling it to the Chinese at all, because we're the ones that need the hip replacements in the back, the discs in the back and the knee replacements. So really, you'd be giving away your best product. And in fact, actually, the way to cook them, they're not too bad, you know. You think it's a terrible thing to be eating chicken feet, but no, I tasted them there. So that's one thing, like there you have it, something that we're throwing out in the processors. Chicken feet has the potential to cure arthritis. So there you have it. And look at me, I'm still alive. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about was life stage nutrition. Life stage, the ruminant nutritionists, and you're going to have an animal nutritionist are much more focused on performance. And if you think of a little baby pig now, this little pig, he'll live for 155 days before he goes off to be a rasher. But in that time, it's going to have 9 different diets. There'll be lactating sow diet, there'll be creep feed, there'll be weaner rations, there'll be grower rations and finisher rations. 9 different diets with the exact micro and macronutrients that the pig needs for each stage of its development. And so the poultry farmers know exactly the same, because like if you think of in a broiler, it only lives for 38 to 40 days. And during that time, you might have 4 different diets. And so therefore, you're giving the animal exactly what it needs for the stage of its life. So animal nutritionists are much more focused on the impact of diet on health than we are in humans. But even if you just go to the supermarket, like you just look at the shelves for the pet food, like they're talking about life stage nutrition for dogs, you know. And so this is actually just some sample. You can get a special diet if you have a toy dog, a little small dog, or if it's a large breed, or if it's a puppy, if it's an active dog. This is for the active seniors. Oh, actually, are now. If you're an old dog, you get a special diet. You call respectfully, your old dog is called an active senior. There he is, active senior 7. And then if you're a fat dog, you have a special diet, right? And if you happen to be a Jack Russell, there's even a special breed-specific diet for a Jack Russell. And then if you're too lazy to bring the dog for a walk, you can have low-calorie dog food. Okay, so it's amazing what we've done with the animals. We're very focused on what they need for their different stages. So the question I'm posing now is, what about humans? And so in the past, human nutritionists used to say, you know, you've got to eat 4 portions of fruit and veg every day, and eat plenty of roughage and cut back on the alcohol, and that's it. You know, like human nutrition wasn't rocket science, but now they're actually looking at the lessons from the animal nutritionists. So like from babies to grandparents, different stages of your life, you have different nutrient requirements. So you don't need the same diet. If you have an active lifestyle or a sedentary lifestyle, males and females, we don't have identical nutritional requirements. So like if you think of infants, small infant, rapidly growing children, I just picked out a few stages: teenagers, people that are pregnant, people that are sedentary middle age, middle-aged females suffer from osteoporosis, and nutrition in the elderly. So these are different stages of life, and they have all got different macro and micronutrient requirements. So like, are you actually thinking about your 2 products, chicken and eggs, and saying, bingo, this is it? We have the life stage nutrition products, whether for infants to the elderly, whether it's a whole meal or an ingredient for a meal. There's convenient, affordable, nutritious. And so we don't position the products like this. So I'll just give an example of a few of the stages. So like babies, they either get breast milk or infant formula, and they get measured. They've got their milestones measured for the first 6 months of their lives. That's the only time you get exactly what you need in life as a human, as against an animal. So they're the only time they get exactly what they need. So everything they need is in breast milk, and infant formula, they try and mimic breast milk as close as they can for the first few months of life. So like the idea that kids their first food could be eggs, because it's easy for them to get into them, you know. Rapidly growing children, if you think of your kids, like how quickly they grow, and like if you haven't seen some of your relatives during the lockdown, like in 7 or 8 months, kids are unbelievable. Kids that couldn't walk and started to run around. And kids that couldn't talk. It's both mental development as well as physical development are now chatting away. So like kids, if you're growing that fast and you're running about like a Duracell bunny, you need a lot of nutrients, and you need a different diet from somebody who isn't doing the same amount of development. So I mean, eggs, kids like eating eggs. So we've got a product that they like already, you know. Developing children, like kids that are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, they are hyperactive. They're like the Duracell bunny. And so like the nutritional requirements for one of these kids that you can't exhaust is just phenomenal. And so consumption patterns started in kids stay with them for their lives, you know. So the adverse effects of poor diet in kids are from dental to mental. That's what I say. Like, and this little boy on the left now, he's taking Coca-Cola. Like you get a premium price for a product that has absolutely no nutritious value, would rust nails and rot your teeth. And the poor little chap on the other side, he's at so much of the wrong stuff that he's overweight, and he's not in good form because he can't play with his pals because he's too heavy. So if Coca-Cola were marketing eggs and chicken, they'd have them in a different place than we have them now. Like we're still selling them as a commodity product, where we have a very special product. And that's the point I was saying at the start. We're underselling it completely. Now, when you look at another life stage, teenagers are going through a physiological revolution of puberty. And so the demands on their micronutrients and macronutrients are huge. And so in Ireland, we see huge macronutrient and micronutrient deficiency in teenagers, you know. Different life stages require different nutritions, and here's young adults or a pregnant person. Now, a pregnant person doesn't have to eat for two, but they have different dietary requirements. They need a balanced diet. And finally, this is sedentary middle age, like when your chest falls down to your belly. Obviously, you're not as active, and people are getting less and less active. And like, no matter what job you have now, even if you're in a rural job, like the farmers one time used to walk down the fields for the cows. Now they actually have to have a quad bike, you know. But basically, an awful lot of people, especially now with all this Zoom and people are on screen time the whole time, we're taking less and less exercise. And so, but we haven't cut back on what they eat. I always say it's okay to eat like a plowman if you are a plowman. And so, like, the consequences of overweight are huge. You know, like people have all kinds of conditions, cardiovascular disease, cancers can be diet related, but also like if you're carrying more weight, like if you were carrying a 4-stone bag of spuds around with you, you would get a pain in your back. And some people are 4 stone overweight or 3 stone overweight, you know, so it's a huge issue. And also if you are very overweight, you're not a good candidate for surgery. And so when you go in for an operation, should you need an operation, your recovery time is actually much longer and your risks are much higher. And instead of a scalpel blade, you probably need a JCB to go in for your gallbladder. Abdominal fat, people talk about fat as if it's just globules of fat, but every fat cell is like a metabolic factory. And it's producing all kinds of endocrine disruptors that actually have adverse effects on your body. So like this is huge. It's a huge issue for us. This is a pal of mine now. He drives a truck, you know, and like he's very worried about his health because he's got high blood pressure, but he actually goes to the GP and he gets blood pressure tablets, and then one tablet doesn't agree with the other. Then he got a monitor to measure his blood pressure every day. And then he announced to me that he's got good news. He's got an appointment with a hypertensive specialist in the Mater to go in and see and get his blood pressure checked in the Mater hospital. But like this fella could throw his belly up on the steering wheel and talk on the mobile phone in one hand and eat a breakfast roll with the other hand and drive from Donegal to Dingle without touching the wheel. So like really, you know, what he does need, if I was a GP, I'd say just look, you need to take off the weight and then come back to me. We'll talk about tablets. Old age can be a great time. Can be a great time if you're healthy. There's no fun if you're in a no folks home. There's no fun if you've got Alzheimer's. There's no fun if you're stuck in a chair. And so like you really have to invest in your health now so you will have a healthy old age. Like people are living longer than ever before in Ireland, but there's no point in living longer if the last 5 years of your life are spent in a home or spent in the kitchen that you can't go outside. But like all of us know people that are elderly and active, and that's the way we can all be. Now, basically, there's a huge actually science associated with muscle metabolism in athletes, and basically, you know, the athletes are much bigger now than they've ever been, but there's the phenomenal advances have been made. And those of you who are my age will think back when we were playing sport, we were much lighter than the lads now and not nearly as strong, you know. And so the most bioavailable protein, this is a protein, when you say bioavailable, it means that you're able to absorb it and it actually helps your muscles to regenerate, is whey. Now, whey used to be a byproduct of cheese manufacture. And in fact, actually, those of you from the south will know that like around the big dairy co-ops, a lot of piggeries were set up to take the whey. And but now whey is nearly as valuable as the cheese, you know, because it's incorporated into a lot of these sports nutrition products. That's just a picture of me with my shirt off, okay? But it's used for bodybuilders, right? So it was actually used for weaner pig diets because it actually drove the weight onto them. It has an anabolic effect, but it's also used for sports, whether it's GAA players or these are rugby players. But like the size of the players now is much bigger and they're much stronger. And so this is the product, you know. And so could the poultry industry plant where the dairy industry is ploughed? This is a question I'm asking you, because like there's not much fun having a whey. Whereas you look at this, like if you look at the amount of protein and the amino acid profile of chicken and eggs is an order of magnitude better than whey. So there you have it. We have a better product, but we never market it as such, you know. But look at this, an egg has 6 grams of protein, 28 grams in fillet, but look at in a slice of cheese, and look at lentils, 8 grams in lentils. For an elderly person to take in enough lentils, they'd have to have a bucket of lentils, if you know what I mean. So like, while you want to, there's some people who like to be vegetarians and vegans, fair enough, but I wouldn't, if you want to be, fair enough, but like, I wouldn't advocate becoming a vegan if you're an elderly person, because you won't be able to get enough protein in to hold on to your muscle mass, you know. So this is one word I want you to learn from me today, if you haven't got it already: sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a normal physiological condition. It's a loss of muscle mass that accompanies aging. This is why your grandparents get smaller, or even your parents. You might notice them, they were bigger than you and now they're smaller than you, because their muscle mass wastes, and it's normal. Kicks in when you're about 50 and starts gradually, you lose your strength. And so the muscles that you lose first, the strength you lose, are your quads, just the front of your thighs, and they're the ones you need to get yourself out of the chair. So, you start getting that you can't get up, and if you're not able to go up and go out and about, you lose your independence, and you're much more likely to become frail and lose strength. And that's why you find a lot of old people fall over and break their hip, and then you get dependent. You need someone to mind you. So this is the whole quality of life issue as you get older. So sarcopenia is a huge issue, and this is an area where I think we're not capitalizing at all in your sector, right? So nutrition in the elderly, nobody ever talks about nutrition in the elderly as if they're a special subset of people, but really, the older people, they need bioavailable protein. But they don't have the digestive system that could handle big T-bone steaks, and they don't have the teeth to chew them either, So it's not inevitable that you lose muscle mass as you age. Not inevitable. You can actually slow down the aging process. Imagine that. So have the poultry industry a product for the lucrative bioavailable protein market? Today, I'm telling you, you've got 4 aces and you're not playing them, okay? If you could slow down the aging process, you get a phenomenal return on your investment. Because if I was there in person with you, I'd be saying, put up your hand if you want to get old. I picked up a magazine one time on an airplane going to the States, and I was reading about some anti-wrinkle cream. And it said, this cream will delay your cosmetic surgery by 10 years. So the idea that, and none of these stuff is cheap. So like, if you think of the cosmetic industry and the margins in the cosmetic industry, they're phenomenal. Whereas we have a product that can actually slow down the aging process. Now, the dairy sector has got in on it, The dairy industry has got in on it big time, and there's all kinds of whey-related products. But the poultry industry should plant where the dairy industry is plowing. And so what you have is, you've easily digested good quality protein. It's much easier to digest fillet chickens or chicken pieces or diced chicken if you're an elderly person than wade your way through big lumps of meat, healthy, affordable protein. So this is what they're saying now. 60 is the new 30. 60 is the new 30. Everything that you could do when you were 30, you should be able to do when you're 60. So what you need is bioavailable protein and a modicum of exercise, resistant training. Not much now. Brendan Egan, you might know me. He was a captain of Sligo. That's something to boast about. But Brendan used to be in UCD, and he was doing a lot of projects on using because he's a sports scientist, all the science of muscle metabolism in the athletes, in the elderly, and they were taking muscle biopsies of elderly patients, and they had them on special diets. And so it was just phenomenal the way you can slow it down. But there's even better news again. 90 is the new 60. So you can actually stay, if you actually pay a bit of attention to your diet, you can actually slow down the aging process. So basically, like the humble egg. I mean, imagine that. Did anyone ever give you an egg and say, this is going to keep you young? Keep you young, There was an old guy who, a friend of mine, his dad, he's in Roscommon, and he actually, he's a farmer and very healthy man, but he always had 2 duck eggs for his breakfast, and a duck egg, I think, is the same as 2 ordinary eggs. That's 4 eggs, So he went to his daughter's persuaded him to go for a checkup. So we went to the doctor, and he was in good nick. There wasn't nothing wrong with him. And the doctor said, well, how's your appetite? He said, very good. And what would you have? He said, well, I'll always have 2 duck eggs for my breakfast. And the doctor said, oh, Jesus. Now, your man was thriving. He was in his 80s. I said, oh, that's terrible. It's just too much eggs, you know. And so anyway, that was grand. So he came home anyway, and I happened to be in the kitchen when he came in, and they were saying, what did he say to you? What did the doctor say to you? I said it was okay. My blood pressure was okay. Pulse was okay. A little bit overweight, but he said I was taking too many eggs because I was taking 2 duck eggs for the breakfast, you know. And I said to him, Jesus, what do you think of that, Paddy? And I said, Jesus, I don't pay any heed to him. He said, I take 4 if I was you. Because I was just saturated with the sarcopenia research we were doing in UCD. I said, you need to keep your strength. So he went back anyway to about 10 years later for another checkup. He hadn't gone near a doctor since. And this time the GP was there that knew him, and he said he was taking 4 duck eggs every morning for his breakfast. And your man, the GP said, Jesus, that's an awful lot of eggs. Jesus, I'll be worried about that. I think you should cut back. And Noel said to him, he says, a professor told me to take those 4 eggs. And this GP was a buddy of mine. He says, who was he? He said, Paddy Wall told me to take 4 duck eggs every day. And Martin says, oh, look, if he told you to take them, you'd better take them. So when Noel came back, he says, Jesus, you want to see the U-turn the doctor made? They must be afraid of Paddy. Anyway, that was the duck eggs. So basically, any of you who've looked after an old person, one of the big challenges you have is to get them to eat. This is a frail old person. So if you could get a person to have scrambled egg for their breakfast, creme brulee and custard for their lunch, and an omelette for their tea, then it's easy for them to chew those, but they're having to get a right few eggs and a lot of bioavailable protein for the day into their system. So getting an old person to eat, keeping people alive, we have the product to do it. So the science of all these products is huge, you know, but there is a utility about having a meal against having a drink. So like, there's a social thing about it. You know, if you're sitting down having grub with someone, you enjoy the meal. So there's no point in telling your granny to take a glass of whey and leave her at it. You know, the whole idea is people enjoy the food and have a bit of crack and enjoyment, and that's important. You see, so like we have a product that fits into that, and so I just took a few pictures here to show you the variety of products you can make with eggs alone. You know, it's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal what you can do. And all of this stuff now is for the elderly. So the idea of giving an old person a bland diet, puree in their food, like woeful. There's no reason you can give the old person a really appetizing food and easy to digest, easy to absorb, simple. You know, it really is the real deal. Now, if you go to your doctor and you're not well, there's no doctor going to give you a prescription for a healthy diet. The doctor's going to give you drugs, and you're going to be like that lady for with the lunchbox full. And all of you know old people who actually, this is what they get every time they go to the chemist shop. There's a chemist in every town in Ireland, in every village in Ireland. Like after the COVID, there'll be no pubs left in any town in Ireland, but there'll be chemist shops. And all of you think of your local village or local town, how many chemist shops are there? And like the drugs aren't cheap, but this is what old people are getting every day. A box full of tablets. And they're all in there, all different colored ones. And we know how one tablet will react with another, but we don't know how one tablet will react with 5 others. Like some old people, like you're giving them a handful of tablets every day, and like you'd say to them, how are you feeling? And they'd look at a handful of tablets and say, how could I be feeling with all this? So this is actually, there's a whole science about healthy aging. And the key pillar in the healthy aging is the nutrition for the elderly. And the 2 products that are the backbone of the nutrition of the elderly are chicken and eggs. So if you go on then to the cosmetics industry, I mentioned that it's a high margin industry, high margin, really expensive, all these different creams. Now, my hobby is keeping horses. So if I want the horse's skin to look well, I'm not rubbing in moisturizing cream into them. I just add a bit of oil to the ration, or I just change the ration. The horses are blooming. And you as farmers know that actually to turn the livestock healthy, you just feed them a good diet. But we don't think about that with ourselves. All eggs are not the same. A lot of people think eggs are the same, but they're not. Here's just one from Nestbox, I think it is. It's actually, these eggs are 12 times more vitamin E, 100% more folic acid, 40% more vitamin D, rich in vitamin B12, and 5 times more omega-3. So like the idea that you can modify the composition of the egg by the composition of the laying hen. So like in the past, the nutrition companies, animal nutrition companies, we used to say the mantra would be advanced animal nutrition for better food conversion efficiency, better weight gain, better egg production, better milk yield, or whatever, you know. But now one of the companies in Ireland, their mantra, DEVENISH, their mantra is advanced animal nutrition for the benefit of human health. And I'll just tell you a little bit of project that we're working on with them. Basically, fish is good for your cardiovascular system, but 60% of fish we eat is now farmed fish. So people eat fish because it has omega-3 and omega-6 in it, but the omega-3 is really important for your cardiovascular system. Now, there's different kinds of omega-3. ALA is the one that comes from plants, and EPA and DHA are the ones that come from marine sources. Now, the one that comes from the plants, the ALA, you often see people feeding flaxseed to hens, they get omega-3 in the eggs. You get ALA. Now, the ALA, we can't use that well. It's still omega-3, but we can't use it as well as the other two, and we don't derive the same benefits. Livestock can convert ALA to EPA and DHA. But anyway, to go back to the farm fish, for farm fish to have a high omega-3 concentration, they have to be fed fish oil and fish meal. So they have to be fed wild fish. So when the word sustainable is a big word that we hear now, sustainable production systems, and for sustainable, you could change that to license to operate. Society expects us to have sustainable production systems and we're not wrecking the environment. But like if you actually are producing farm fish and you have to harvest wild fish to keep the thing going, that's definitely not sustainable. So what's happened is that as the wild fish stocks get scarce, and one of the fish stocks they use for the fish oil is anchovies along the south coast of America, and or the coast of South America, I should say. The anchovies got scarce, price of fish oil and fish meal rose, and then the aquaculture, they replaced the fish oil with vegetable oil. So you're eating oily fish 3 times a week, thinking that you're getting omega-3, which is good for your heart. Not so. The concentration of omega-3 in farm fish is much less than it used to be heretofore. And basically, what happened was they add vegetable oil. Now you're getting a good quality protein. Like fish is a good quality protein. So you're not getting the benefits of the omega-3. But Pierce Lyons, who was the director of Alltech, Pierce Lyons was a kind of a visionary man. He actually was saying, well, hold on a second. Where do the wild fish get their omega-3? They get it from eating crustaceans, and crustaceans get it from marine algae. So where do the marine algae get it? He just said, look, the crustaceans get it from marine algae. Could we bypass the crustaceans and make a marine algae-based diet for farm fish, and we could drive the omega-3 up that way? So DSM and Trow and a lot of the other companies are at it now, but the men in Alltech were the first I'd heard talking about it. But it's interesting that 2 Irish companies got in on this. Alltech started off feeding it to aquaculture, but then DEVENISH Nutrition, they started thinking, well, hold on a second. I said, if you can drive the omega-3 concentration up in fish with a marine algae premix, could you do the same with other species? Because a lot of people don't like eating fish. So they actually selected chicken. And so they said, could you feed the marine algae-based diet to chicken and drive up omega-3 in the chicken? Now, initially what we did was we fed it to chicken, and like chicken, I thought that it wouldn't get into the chicken because the chicken have so little fat that omega-3 is a fatty acid. It'd be in the fat, would it be in the tissues? But sure enough, it is in it. So they demonstrated that if you fed this premix containing the marine algae to broilers, you could get it into the broiler meat, and also you could get it into the eggs if you fed it to laying hens. So the next thing was, well, is there enough in there to make any difference to a human? So we got these medical students, 15 medical students, to eat fillets, 3 fillets, or fillets 3 times a week. And then we said, well, to know if we're protecting them from getting a heart attack, should we have to follow the student for 30 years because they're only young? So the question was, that we went to the lab and said, look, is there anything you could measure in these students to demonstrate whether eating these chicken is having a good effect or a bad effect? Anything at all that would measure that it's having some effect and physiologically in their system. So they measured a few things, but 2 of the things they measured were omega-3, omega-6 ratio on the surface of the red cells and platelet aggregation. Now, platelets are your clotting factors, and that's they they stick together. So they're a precursor to plaque formation, like your arteries blocking up. And they're also a precursor to clot formation, like strokes. So amazingly, the students, in return for getting the free chicken, they had to give a blood sample every week, which they didn't mind. But after 6 weeks, their platelet stickiness had reduced dramatically. And when this data was presented in Beaumont Hospital, the doctors were saying, oh, this thing is as good as taking an aspirin every day. They were saying to me, you should be promoting this. They didn't know I was fully aware of the whole thing. But then they took it to the next stage, because basically omega-3 is good for your cardiovascular system, but it's also good for your cognitive function and mood and all that. So that was only a pilot with a small number of medical students. So then they decided to get a representative sample of the Irish population and do a double-blind randomized controlled trial where they fed, some people were eating conventional chicken and conventional eggs, and some people were eating the enriched chicken and eggs, and some people were eating capsules, fish oil capsules. So, and in addition to measuring the markers for cardiovascular function, they were also doing psychometric testing for mood and that now. So obviously that's why it was a double-blind study. The doctors didn't know who was eating what, and the patients didn't know who was eating what. Because if you said to them, my students, how are you feeling since you started getting the omega-3 chicken? They'd say, yes, we're feeling great since we got the free chicken. Yeah, you know what I mean? So that wouldn't have been a good, so this was a double-blind study. But it was interesting that the findings in the pilot were replicated. And so that was just fantastic. And basically the interesting thing was when people were eating capsules, people are eating fish oil capsules, they had less omega-3 in their system. Now, it was giving them a benefit, but they'd less in their system than people that were eating it in a food matrix. And so your body is designed to absorb your micronutrients in a food matrix rather than as a tablet. So this is just a milk that you can get in Japan. This is on the cognitive health thing. Like they add the fish oil directly to the milk. So like Japanese people like eating sushi, raw fish, so they don't seem to mind the taste of fish. But the milk, this milk tastes like fish. It's a fishy taste of it. So basically, if you want your kid to grow up to be Einstein, you give them this milk, you know. So I'm saying, well, why, if you can have Einstein milk, why can't we have Einstein eggs? You know, and the thing is, when you feed the marine-based algae product to laying hens, you get omega-3 concentration in the eggs, but you don't get any fishy taste of the eggs. They're the same as normal eggs. So like the idea that if you give your kid these eggs, they have a much better chance to be more focused, less attention deficit disorder. Like it's a no-brainer. This is the work that was done in Beaumont Hospital. It was done by researchers, not from UCD here. I can't take credit for this one, but from the College of Surgeons. But basically, they did a huge amount of work, cost a lot of money. Beaumont Hospital couldn't understand how it was an animal feed company that were paying for this research. But basically, they were able to demonstrate the benefits of feeding people enriched chicken meat or enriched eggs. And they fed people for 6 months, so it was very dramatic. And this paper is all about the cardiovascular benefits, but the benefits on cognitive function, they've only cracked open the trial on that, unblinded it, and the results for that are very exciting as well. So that's just to give you an example of what you could do to add more value. I said at the start that chicken and eggs are excellent products, and they are, even if you didn't do this. This is biofortification. One last point, and I'll stop, Rebecca. The biggest category of food in the US is diet-related products. Do you know that? Diet-related category is bigger than any other category. It's a phenomenal amount of money, and at any one point, something like 60% of people are on some kind of a diet. And every few months, a new diet comes out. Some celebrity has a diet based on a sample of one themselves, you know, how they lost weight, you know. And so it's just a phenomenal area. And so like people are conscious about their weight, and we are losing, but like it is possible to position eggs and chicken meat as part of calorie controlled diets to lose weight, you know. It is possible. So I mean, for portion control, there's nothing better than a boiled egg. Say you just had one of a boiled egg for my breakfast. Once you've eaten the boiled egg, well, that's it. Short of eating the shell, you're not going to eat any more. And so people can lose weight dramatically by the inclusion of eggs in their diet. And like the whole push for low carb, cutting out carbohydrates. Sure, where would you get a better product than chicken as a low carb product, you know? and also an enjoyable product, like the range of meals that you can prepare with chicken that are appetizing and I mean, really, people want to lose weight, stay healthy, but also eating food is enjoyable. This shouldn't be torture. So the idea that you can actually have a very enjoyable, like eating is one of the few pleasures we have in life, and you have the products that can actually produce delicious meals, which are healthy and health enhancing. So this is the last slide. The final take-home slide, that after today, now, if anybody asks you what business you're in, don't say you're in the business of producing chicken meat or in the business of producing eggs. You're in the human health business. Thank you.
Pat, thank you very, very much. Excellent presentation. Just fantastic. Really intriguing to see the view that we should be taking on the product that we produce, that our farmers and growers are doing. So just to start with a couple of comments, I suppose, Pat, this person has said, I don't have a question, but I would like to say that it's the first meeting and they found it excellent. Both speakers were very good. I love listening to Paddy Wall and always get a laugh. Thanks a million again for making my day. I learned so much. So Pat, I want to thank you so much for your time. I just have a couple of questions, if that's all right. So you've told us very clearly the health benefits of poultry meat, duck eggs, chicken eggs, whatever it is. But who's responsible for promoting our product as that superfood? Is it down to the producers themselves, or is it the integrators, the likes of Western Brand, Manor Farm, Shannon Vale, or is it down to the likes of maybe the department, or is it the nutrition companies such as DEVENISH, Trow, whoever it is, or do Board Bia come in?
I think actually Board Bia probably are the marketing wing of the whole job. They need to actually have a health enhancing message in with the products, plus also the retailers. Like we have a group, the Campylobacter stakeholder group, where we have players from along the whole chain, from the growers all the way through to the retailers and the agencies like the Food Safety Authority and Safe Food. So I think actually that's the sort of a forum, because we all need to be saying this same message, if you know what I mean. But you know, really, I say this again, like I'm a doctor and a vet, but I actually I'll say this one against the doctors, that like the medical profession actually spent 2 or 3 years during their 6-year course studying pharmacology. But if I asked you how many lectures do medical students get about nutrition, you'd be shocked. Maybe in the 6 years, 3, you know? So like your doctors like we need to educate them. I'm on a crusade to educate doctors on nutrition, because basically, as I said to you about the old person on the tablets, like we're killing people with tablets because they're not able to handle them. Whereas if we actually told people, and when people go to the doctor, they usually take advice from the doctor. If the doctor gave them good advice. There was a campaign that we had, a Negaday is okay. I remember tackling Aidan Cotter, who used to be the head man in Board Bia, because we had a poultry conference up in Monaghan, and that campaign got an award, you know. And he said, that was a great campaign. And I'm a fan of Aidan. So I said, Aidan, no, I think that wasn't a good campaign at all. I wouldn't be giving you an award for that one. And Negaday is okay. So that's the kiss of death for an omelette or scrambled eggs, you know. You know, a Negaday, you couldn't give enough eggs to people at the right time. And there was a whole thing about cholesterol in eggs. And there's 2 kinds of cholesterol, HDL and LDL. And God gave you cholesterol for a reason. And so it's the LDL component of cholesterol is the bad one. So if you think of LDL, it's low density lipoprotein, and HDL is high density. But if you think of low LDL, L for lethal and H for healthy, the HDL is actually good for you. And so that the cholesterol in chicken, in eggs, is no longer the one that's supposed to be killing us and bad for us. And even, you know, the idea your cholesterol is only one component of your diet, if you know what I mean. And so like, who wants to say that I died from a heart attack when I was 65, but on my cholesterol was normal, thank God, you know what I mean? You know, so like really the whole thing about the older population, we need to keep them healthy, and we have a product to do that, you know. But I kind of focus maybe a bit more on the elderly, but at every life stage, chicken and eggs have a role to play. And I can't understand why the athletes some of them are onto it. Like, I mean, eating is an enjoyable thing to be doing, but like chicken fillets and eggs are far more enjoyable to eat than drinking slugs out of jugs of whey, and that whey isn't cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the next question I was going to ask was, should there be more focus on the likes of these products in school? So you see that the sports people, GA players even, are given diets by their trainers and coaches, and part of it is these protein diets, or the as you said, it's taking a slug out of a protein drink. But should children be educated all along, or is there enough of focus of that in schools maybe?
Yeah, I think actually we need to get the young people, as I said, consumption patterns are established when they're young, and so we need to emphasize. And I think actually maybe if there was one lesson in this COVID debacle is actually the importance of people being healthy, because once those people in the population who are healthy, they're not getting a whack out of this, but the people who have got other illnesses, it's affecting them, or people that are frail.
Yeah, definitely. Just one question there. Is there any extra advantage nutritionally feeding organic feed to the birds? Does that then affect the produce?
Well, I mean, some people are fans of organic. It makes people feel better, and sustainability for the environment. All the people have lots of different reasons, but like some of you who have organic flocks or free range or house flocks, like is there a different taste? I think nutritionally it's not that much difference, but like you've got consumer confidence is as important as anything else. So if people want to buy organic, fair play, let them. But like you don't want to demonize the non-organic stuff, if you understand,
Yes, totally understand. Unfortunately, we've run out of time and actually run a little bit over time. Pat, I want to thank you for an excellent presentation. I have to say I've seen you a couple of times myself and always loved your talk, so I was very grateful to have you here today. I want to thank Eithne as well for joining us earlier on, and Louise Clark for stepping in and saving the day when technical issues went against me. But look, maybe that's a sign that we need to get away from all these Zooms and get back to actually being more social, like the Irish are and like we all want to be. So as I said, this webinar has been recorded. It'll be available on the Teagasc website after, along with Pat's presentation. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you all next Wednesday at 12 o'clock with Kieran McCabe. Thanks again.